Hey everyone, this is the prep video for Unit 2, Subunit 2, VAT Supplies, which we will be looking at next week and which will also form part of Test 1. In your module guide for EBEL 2708, you need to go to page 49 and you will there find the chapters, the paragraphs in chapter 2, sorry, that's supposed to be chapter 2, not chapter 1, of SABA. And ladies and gentlemen, at all times when you are prepping for an EBL 2708 topic or unit or module, you need to make sure that your study guide is open next to you so that you know exactly where in the material, like the textbook, you will be working. What I also suggest is as you start working through these things, that you tick off when you are done with something. So for example, if you've read through 2.10 and you've made a summary of your key or the main ideas, you tick it off and then you know, sharp, I've looked at it for the first time, so when I get to class, you've already trained your brain to start making links with some of the examples and case studies we will be doing. So what I thought I'd do with this video is just to show you exactly how you need to work through the textbook and what it is that you need to be doing and you know what you can leave and what do I mean with leave something. So we are going to be looking at Unit 2, Subunit 2, which is the type of supplies we get in VAT, and this is really important work. So with your module guide next to you, you are going to, in your textbook, you are going to page 48 and you will be starting with SABA 2.10. Now, ladies and gentlemen, 2.10, and you will also see this in your module guide, this specific paragraph sets out the principles of zero-rated supplies, so it's a very important paragraph. As you work through this, what you also need to be doing is making or having a page next to you, you know, depending on how you make your summaries. And as you are going through it, you're not making a detailed summary yet. You are just summarizing some of the things that you see as main ideas or key ideas or headings to take you through to our contact session. So you will see we're going to do 2.10, 2.10.1, 2.10.1.1, which is direct exports, and then 2.10.1.2 is indirect exports, which we also do, and there's some examples that you can work through. On page 53, you will see there's a diagram that explains the differences between direct and indirect exports. That's a nice diagram to have a look at. It's quite important. Then, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at your module guide at this point in time, you will see that if you go from 2.10.2 or 2.10.3.2, there's no going to 2.10.1.3. There's a lot of points here. Okay, so goods delivered by a vendor to a foreign going ship or aircraft, you can leave, right? That's why that little line is there and it's not circled. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I told you in class that, listen, if you can, hold on to these books because this type of work might be added to your syllabus next year and there's additional examples. So you don't want to just take a pen and run through it, but this is something you don't have to study for purposes of EBL. If we go down, you'll see the same for 2.10.1.4. And where do you need to start studying and reading again? 2.10.2, exported services. But here you will only be looking at specific types, exported services with regards to transportation and additional services. So the moment you go to 10.2.3, again, you will leave. You will leave, and then any examples relating to that specific paragraph, you of course also leave then. 2.10.3, sale of going concern, that again we are going to be looking at, as well as the specific examples relating to going concern. In terms of calculations, you will see at 2.10.3.3, and this is also indicated in your module guide. In EBL 2708, we only look at 100% taxable use. So for more than and less than 50%, that will be done with you next year. that also means you can leave that example 2.14. In terms of zero-rated supplies, other, we only look at gold coins, basic foodstuff. So if it's circled, you have to prep it. If there's a line through it, you don't. If you have a look at the next page, you'll see supply of fuel levy goods and illuminating kerosene. The rest of that page you can leave, as well as the rest of the page up until the remember block on page 62, which is a very important remember block, as well as example 2.16. Then we move over to exempt supplies, 2.11. We're going to be looking at financial services, as well as, let me just get there, we're not going to do donated goods and services, but accommodation, specifically residential accommodation, we do all of that. Then if you look at 2.11.3.2, commercial accommodation, in eBAL 2708, we only look at the meaning of what a supply is in terms of commercial accommodation. So the rest that relates to the value of supply, you leave. So you will basically leave page 68, 69, and then up until page 70, because we will also only do a bit of 2.11.4. You'll see I circled it, but the first 3 bullets we don't do. We will look at the transport of fare-paying passengers, educational services, supplies by schools, as well as childcare services by a creche or an after-school care centre. Then we are also going to be looking at deemed supplies next week. So there's a bunch of supplies we'll be doing. But in terms of deemed supplies, 2.12, we only do 2 types of deemed supplies in eBAL 2708. So you will essentially be leaving everything until you get to 2.12.2, deemed supply indemnity payments. We're going to be looking at that one. So everything under deemed supply indemnity payments, you need to work through, read, have a look at the examples, start making your summaries. We don't do branches in eBAL 2708, so that you can leave. We don't do fringe benefits. Again, don't just drag a pen through it, because fringe benefits and independent branches, for example, is either added in PGDIP GA or third year BAC, or then CTA. Then the only other deemed supply that we do, and you'll see there's a lot of pages that you can leave, is 2.12.5, which is deemed supply, payments exceeding consideration. So under that paragraph, you need to have a look at everything, and you will also leave 2.12.6. Just a reminder again, ladies and gentlemen, if you are busy prepping for class, remember, you don't need to rewrite the textbook. You are essentially just making a summary of your main ideas or headings, so that when you get to class and we start working through some of the issues within these specific aspects, your brain has already seen it or heard of it, and now you can just make links and sort out any problems or challenges that you experience. So I've already given you an example of the Cornell method that you can use to, help you make summaries. One of the other methods that I also use sometimes is mind mapping. This is of course not for everybody, so if you don't like mind mapping, then you don't have to do it. But this is an example of my formal summary that I did for zero-rated supplies. So you will see I started off by, listing the headings. So there's exports, the sale of a going concern, and other zero-rated supplies. Under exports, I said, okay, there's direct exports, there's indirect exports, there's additional services, and there's cross-border. And then under the sale of the going concern, what is it? What are the requirements? And how do I do the calculations? And then what are the other zero-rated supplies? So remember, when prepping, you are not necessarily going to go into this much detail yet. You just need to work through the information so that when you get to class and we start going through the material and doing case studies, you already have a sense of what is going to happen.